courtroom in California in the case of Kellen Winslow II is on break because Jane Doe number 4 is on the stand. We have other news to talk about. This morning, today, earlier, Robert Mueller made his first public statement, his first public announcement since his report came out. We're going to talk about it, but before that, let's listen to what he said about whether or not he could exonerate the President of the United States of America.
And as set forth in the report, after that investigation, if we had had confidence that the President clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. We did not, however, make a determination as to whether the President did commit a crime. The introduction to the Volume 2 of our report explains that decision. It explains that under long-standing department policy, a president cannot be charged with a federal crime while he is in office. That is unconstitutional. Even if the charge is kept under seal and hidden from public view, that too is prohibited. Charging the president with a crime was therefore not an option we could consider. The opinion says that the Constitution requires a process other than the criminal justice system to formally accuse a sitting president of wrongdoing. And beyond department policy, we were guided by principles of fairness. It would be unfair to potentially accuse somebody of a crime when there can be no court resolution of the actual charge.
So Gene Rossi, our law and crime legal analyst, who is a former federal prosecutor of over 30 years, you have a room dedicated to you, a trial room. I can think of no one better to ask about this Mueller statement than you, Gene Rossi. And here's my question. With Robert Mueller saying that it was the regulations at the DOJ that prevented him from charging the president with the crime, if there was one, he said he further could not exonerate the president. So clearly, does this make the case for charges being brought, which is called impeachment, stronger, or will it make it weaker?
It makes the case for impeachment hearings to proceed in a grand way. It is very strong evidence that Robert Mueller wants Congress to do its job. But the other big takeaway from what Robert Mueller said is this. He is saying that the Attorney General of the United States was not truthful and accurate when Mr. Barr said that the OLC memo had nothing to do with Robert Mueller's decision not to recommend charges on obstruction. That is the biggest takeaway for me, in addition to giving fuel, rocket fuel, to starting impeachment proceedings.
Well, Gene, one of the things that Nancy Pelosi, Speaker Pelosi, said that she wasn't planning to bring charges before this, and I think that comes from the fact that she does not think she could get a conviction in the Senate, given the fact that partisan politics appears to be running our country. Does this statement by Mueller seem to say, hey, you have a duty to do it, or does it just level that playing field?
I think Robert Mueller is saying, and he's a man of honor, he's a man of integrity, he is a man of duty. What he is saying is Congress, Volume 2 and possibly Volume 1, both have evidence that could be the basis for initiating impeachment proceedings. Do your job. And he also, with a wink and a nod, and he looked very pained and troubled, he's also saying this: I could not conclude that he did not commit a crime. With a wink and a nod, he's basically saying, I had enough to charge him, but that memo says I could not.
Well, he also gave another statement this morning about whether or not he will give future statements in the near history of the United States. And I'm using that word history loosely, because we know there is a history of charges being brought against sitting presidents that we have in our history against 2 prior presidents, at least that we know about. Now, impeachment is just a charge, isn't it, Gene?
Impeachment is an article that is approved by the House Judiciary Committee or the House committee that is assigned that task. It's something that is approved by the House of Representatives, which essentially is acting as a grand jury. And then it goes to the Senate, the Pettit jury, and they have to get 67 votes.
Okay, so let's see what else Robert Mueller told us this morning. So Gene Rossi, since Robert Mueller just said that if he is subpoenaed to testify, any testimony he gives would not go beyond the report, should Congress subpoena him to testify?
Yes, and you know what, Linda? I had about 110 trials. You mentioned that war room named after me. If I did not call every witness who did not want to testify, I would have had maybe 3 trials. Congress will and should subpoena Robert Mueller. He does not want to testify, obviously, but he will comply with the subpoena. He is just saying, I'm not going to get up there and be a showman. I'm not going to be a grand marshal. I'm going to stick to what the report says. If you still want me to testify, I'm going to stick to the report. That's all he's saying. He's not saying he's going to fight the subpoena. He's just giving him a heads up. I'm not going to be running my mouth.
So, Gene, let me just ask you this then. Since the Department of Justice is in the executive branch for the purposes of the Constitution, could the president or somebody else say anything beyond the report is privileged and we are not going to testify because we have 3 branches of government, the executive branch, the congressional branch, and the Supreme Court, and therefore that's it?
Right. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, still has the right to exercise any applicable privileges. I think the only one he could invoke probably would be the executive privilege. But if Congress limits its questioning to what the report says, it's very hard to argue executive privilege when you're asking a witness, Robert Mueller, to just explain a little bit what you mean by certain things in the report. And I think the Congress is going to do that, whatever committee subpoenas him.
Well, Gene, there's going to be a lot that we're going to be discussing with you, picking your brain in the future, because we can see this is not going to come to a clear end in the immediate future of the history of our United States of America. We have to, here at Law and Crime Network, Gene, take a quick break. I know you're going to be staying with us. When we come back, we hopefully will be back in the courtroom of the Kellen Winslow's second sexual assault trial against a number of women from 2003 through 2018. Stay with us.